Hello, everyone. Welcome to the New Moon live show discussion. We are going to talk about non-spoilers for like a second, like a little bit, because it's hard to like talk about this book without talking about spoilers. And when I mean non-spoilers, it's going to be spoilery from Twilight. So you will have to have read Twilight, but just not this book. And then when we do get into spoilers, I want to remind everyone in the chat and everyone here that has read the books before that we're not talking about spoilers for the rest of the series for people that have only read the first two books. So just keep that in mind. But I will let all of us go around, introduce yourself, tell your star rating, and then just give a little bit of context as to why you gave the rating that you did.
Am I going first?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, Michelle from Michelle's Library. This is probably my fourth or fifth time reading New Moon, and I gave it 4 stars. I will say that I was not excited to reread this one, and I ended up liking it a lot more than I thought I was. So that's good.
I'm Sydney from Sydney Page Books, and this was my first time reading New Moon, and I gave it 2 stars because I thought it was just like really boring and long, and I feel like a lot happened, but at the same time, a lot didn't happen. So yeah.
Fair.
Hi, I'm Cami from Burrows and Books. This is my second time rereading New Moon, and I gave it 3 stars. And I felt very similar to Sydney. This is my least favorite book in the series, just because I don't like the main focus of the book.
Fair enough. Hi guys, my name's Jess. My channel is Books Past Bedtime. I have no idea how many times I've read New Moon, but I gave it 4 stars because I love it, but I don't love it as much as Twilight. It's my least favorite in the series either, but yeah, 4 stars.
And this is my first time rereading it. The first time I read it, I didn't rate any of the books because I didn't even know rating was a thing at that time. But like, if I were to rate it without the nostalgia, it would be a 4. But because of the nostalgia, I have to give it a 5. Like, I don't know why. I mean, it is my least favorite in the series, and so I was dreading picking this one up. But I actually liked it more this time around. And then obviously, like, I've grown up a little bit and I can spot certain things that are like red flags or just things that I'm like, wait a second, why are we just not talking about this? But yeah, so that's why I would give it like a 4, really, because there are certain things I'm like, why was this not focused on more, or why was she pushing the agenda on like certain things that are not great? But yeah. Also, hello, Yvette. Glad to have you here. But I don't even know if there's anything I want to talk about that's non-spoilery. I guess I'll just give a synopsis of the book. So in New Moon, we are following Bella as Edward has just dumped her ass at the beginning of the book, saying, I don't love you anymore, and just ta-ta for now, like literally just yeets off into the forest. He's like, my family, it'll be as if we never existed. And so she goes through a very long, depressive episode, and Jacob Black comes along and he tries to help her through it. He's the only person that makes her feel things. And just, yeah, that's the synopsis of New Moon. I gave it 3 stars. It's my least favorite. Bella's annoying and Jacob is toxic. Yeah, LOL. Which I think it's funny that Stephenie Meyer, one of her brother's names is Jacob. I was like, why would you write, like, why?
And in the acknowledgements, she says something like, please forgive me if I wrote anything that like makes you regret allowing me to use your name. And I'm like, poor Jacob. I'm sure he regrets it. Jacob's a horrible
Probably.
character, like, what the hell?
Yeah, I mean, she has like a bunch of siblings that I was reading about, and I think she used pretty much every one of her siblings' names in the book, except for Heidi.
She used Heidi's name in this book. Heidi let all of the vampires into the, or let all the humans into the.
Oh yeah.
You're right. Yeah, because Emily, Heidi, Paul, Seth, and Jacob. So like all of them are in here somewhere.
She must have liked Heidi the least, though. She gave her the smallest part.
All right, let's just go ahead and hop into spoilers. So if you haven't read the book and you want to read the book, goodbye. We'll see you at a later date. You can come back and watch this once you've read it. But let's go ahead and jump into spoilers. Oh my gosh. Well, she's Mormon, of course.
That's what I was gonna say.
I was like, don't say that, Jess.
I was like, it's because she's Mormon.
Not a bad thing. I mean, okay. So the best way to hop into this discussion is just to hop in. Okay, what do we think about the whole soul talk? Like, why is Edward so convinced that he's gonna take her soul, and like, why is he so obsessed with souls?
I do think it's interesting because Stephenie Meyer is so religious, or she grew up Mormon, so religious, assuming that Bella is not at all. She like makes multiple comments that like she's atheist or whatever, like religion's not a big deal to her. But then on counter to that, it seems like religion is something that Edward believes in. And I just wonder if it is like in reference to the time that he grew up in, or yeah, why is he so focused on this concept of a soul? He's such like a martyr character, I feel like. He like just does not want to do anything that could possibly harm Bella, which is like one of my questions.
Well, I think it's also because he really didn't have a choice either in becoming a monster. And he doesn't want that for her because it's not, he loves her so much that he knows that what he is is monstrous. Like, sure, it's romanticized in this book, but like, if you really think about it, surviving off of some other creature's blood, life force, is monstrous.
I feel like Rosalie really sees it like that, though. I don't know that Edward does. Like, does Edward really? I mean, I guess he does. But.
I think he does. I don't think it's to the extreme that Rosalie does.
Yeah.
But I don't think if he didn't view it as something that was negative, he would care so much about what happens to her soul.
Yeah.
And I think it's also because like Edward just believes that there's no afterlife for them. Like but also there's not really talk of heaven and hell. It's basically just, I mean, they do make a couple of jokes of like, oh, I'll see you in hell type of thing. And like, oh, if I can see you, then I'm obviously not in hell. But it's just interesting because Carlisle believes that his life can have purpose and like there is a reason for it. And he's trying to, get Edward to see that. And Edward does kind of see that towards the end when he's seeing Bella after she's just saved him from like exposing himself to everyone. And he's like, wait, he was right the whole time kind of thing. I mean, he didn't say that specifically, but it kind of led her to believe that maybe Carlisle is making a difference with him and like not necessarily pushing his beliefs on him, but kind of pushing his beliefs in like the right direction of like, you haven't lost your soul. You won't be taking anyone's soul if you do this type of thing.
Well, especially like at the end when they do the vote and Carlisle is like, well, duh. Like he already considers her part of the family. So like, why is Edward like hurting himself not doing it? Like, obviously he likes the smell of her blood. So like, that's hard. Like, no, he wants to kill her all the time.
Not great in a partner.
Yeah. So just like do it. Like this whole discussion is just It drags on.
Yeah.
It drags
That's
on a
like-
lot. I do think it's interesting though that like Carlisle was like, well, if you had to take Edward's soul, would you be okay with it? And that makes Bella like think for a second, but then it's like never mentioned again, and she's back on like
Yeah, and Carlisle took Edward. So
Yeah.
Well, and my thing is, why would their soul even matter if they're just gonna live forever anyway?
I guess like losing your soul makes you a bad vampire. Like you're just a vampire with no soul is a vampire with no morals, I guess. Like you would be the type that's like James. I don't know. It doesn't make that much sense
It
because yeah, it's
doesn't.
like you would just live. It's
Well,
not like
But Edward doesn't believe that they have souls once they transition to becoming vampires.
right.
So like I think it's a loss of humanity. If that makes sense. Like what's tethering them to the real world.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's true.
yeah.
good point.
yeah, I feel like it's almost just a conflict to be a conflict.
Yeah.
It definitely is. It was like, what can be the conflict? And this is it.
Mhm.
It was to make it deep. Let's have
Sounds
some
good.
deep discussions, but like with no actual ground.
Well, that's the thing. Like they talk about religion a lot, but it's so surface level. It's never like
Mhm.
actually delved into.
Yeah. And like, was anyone surprised with the votes from the Cullens? Like when she was asking them to take a vote, was anyone surprised with anyone's answer?
No, Rosalie's always makes me so sad.
Yeah. Rosalie is just like
I love you
sad.
so much. Yeah.
Yeah. When she's like, I wish someone had voted no for me.
Yeah, that's like
Yeah.
a bang my fist on the table moment. Like, oh,
Yeah.
kills me.
Okay. Now let's talk about the love triangle. That, in my opinion, now reading it, I'm like, there is no love triangle.
I agree. I
Like,
agree.
Yeah.
There
I
actually
didn't see
is
it.
no love triangle. There's
Yeah.
no like team Edward, team Jacob in my mind.
Yeah.
It's like I love Jacob as a friend for her,
Yeah.
but there's no actual love triangle because at no point is she like, I'm in love with Jacob, but like I also love Edward. Like
Yeah.
there's no choice.
Yeah.
I like rereading this. I can't believe how many times she like is like, I feel nothing. Like my heart belongs to Edward. Like how many times does she say that? But then like the fandom and the movies just like pounded it. And I'm just like, that's so interesting because like reading it again, I was like, nothing.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
not only does she think it, she says it to him like all the time.
Yeah. All the
She
time.
makes her feelings towards him very clear, and it
Yeah.
drives me nuts that he will not just stay in the friend zone. Like, just accept
Yeah.
your position. Stop
Yeah.
fighting. It makes you
Yeah.
look very bad.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know, I can't stand. I can't stand Jacob in this book.
Like, yes, I am team Edward and team Jacob as a friend because like he really did help her out while she
Yeah. In the moments when
But
he's just
it
being
works.
her friend, it's great.
Yeah.
Nice, yeah. But then he like always has to like nudge it in the other way, and that to me was just taking advantage of her fragile state.
Well, and in the end too, with the motorcycle thing, like I feel like he really shows how immature he is. Also.
Yeah.
yeah.
And like
It's really,
possessive.
like-
He thinks Bella owes him something. Like he's one of those guys
Mhm.
in my head.
I forgot about the motor. Like I always forget about the motorcycle thing. But then I realized like, so Bella just turns 18, so that means he's like 15 or 16, and I'm just like, he's so young, like you.
I know.
Yeah, why
And-
did he have just been 18? Like, why did she have to make him 16? Like,
Yeah,
what
I
was the
don't
point of that?
I don't know.
Yeah, it just made it creepy because anytime I was like, okay, because she's trying to, which is like the first red flag, okay? She's trying to convince herself that she could love Jacob. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
if you really felt that way for you wouldn't have to like convince
Convince
yourself.
yourself. Yeah.
She's like, oh, I'd be fine settling for him.
Yeah, settling.
So bad.
Yeah.
Because
And-
she'll always be thinking of Edward, and it just sucks for Jacob also. Because
Yeah.
I got the girl.
I was thinking about this the whole time I was thinking about like talking today. I was just like, there is no love triangle. Like it's always like Team Bella being like, no, thank you. Like I love you as a friend, but that's it. Like I don't know how many times she has to say it. But then like I guess the fandom got a hold of this and was just like, let's go. It's a love triangle.
I think in the movie it really blurs the
It
line.
really is. Yeah.
So
I mean, because you're not in her head. You don't know that she's having all these thoughts of like, yeah, he can hold my hand, I guess, if it's just platonic. Like, he knows that I don't want anything to do with him in that way, but does he know? I don't know. But obviously in the movie, like, she can't, you're not in her head. But
Yeah.
in the book, she literally says, wow, I wish Jacob had been born my brother. And I'm like, can we not do this? I just feel like he should have been her same age so that it would make it, like Jess was saying, it's just like, why did you have to make it weird?
Yeah.
yeah.
Because no one's gonna want to root for him. I mean, with given like no context, no age, all that stuff, and you're just like, okay, we have Jacob who's really hot, like literally, and he's a werewolf, and like he comforts her in her times of need, and he's not thirsting for her blood. And then we have Edward, who is constantly craving her blood, like is sparkly, is a vegetarian vampire, and all this. Like you would choose between the two people like that, but it's just once you know, Jacob, he's young. I mean, she's 18, like freshly 18, and he's 16, but like still, it's just weird at that age.
Yeah.
It's not weird when you're 22 and then somebody's like 24. That's just not, it's not the same. When you're teens, it's just.
Especially when they like make tons of comments too about Bella being old for her age.
Yeah.
Also, like she had to basically raise her mother because her mother was a psycho. And they talk about how like emotionally mature Bella is. And
Yeah, and then they even have that back and forth of like, okay, we're gonna add years to my age for this because I know how to cook. That should add 2 years to my. And I'm like, why are we trying to convince ourselves that this is okay?
Yeah, and that is what it is. It's trying to justify their age difference for like multiple chapters. It's so stupid.
It is stupid.
1 point.
I love this.
He's like the family dog you see in them. Honestly, though,
No, you're not wrong.
the freaking movie theater scene, which I didn't realize that they went to the movies twice in this book. I forgot. I knew about the one with like Mike and Jacob, which was very uncomfortable, but I forgot about the movies with Jess when she's like, oh yeah, I'm just gonna do this to make Charlie feel like I'm actually out there again.
Yeah.
But that when Mike literally vomits after watching that movie and Jacob calls him a marshmallow, I'm just like, I want to call people marshmallows now. Like that's the best comeback. But do we feel like trying to talk about like family dynamics and stuff, when Bella was like deep in her depression and then we get her coming out of it, like that one little chapter, I think I tabbed it, hold on, which iconic, the whole months thing going by, like just a page.
Oh yeah.
Page. Every time I get to it, I'm like, ooh,
I know.
gives me the chills. And then that song plays in my head because
I know. I've had it stuck in my head all week because of this book.
Where is that freaking passage? It's like, waking up. And then after that, Charlie and Bella have like this discussion about where she's at, how she's been these past couple of months. Do we feel like his treatment of her in that moment was like warranted. Did he handle her depression well, or do you think he could have handled it better?
Yeah, he definitely could have done better. Literally everyone could have done better in this whole entire town.
I think for Charlie, he doesn't know how to do it better. Like, that's the capacity his character has.
I know, but if you're a parent and you see your child sitting in a chair for 3 months straight, you're gonna do something about it, right? Like, right? I would hope so. So that just feels like negligence.
I'm not a parent.
I feel like I would as a parent. I'd be like, dude, this is not okay.
Yeah, I feel like Charlie did the best that he could. And this is kind of like counter to something I wanted to talk about, where Charlie like suggests Bella go talk to somebody.
Mm-hmm.
I think the mental health handling in this book was very bad.
Yes.
Especially Bella's reaction to Charlie suggesting that. She's like, "You want me to go see a shrink?" Like, just
go see a shrink.
Appalled at the thought of therapy. I know this book was written like in the late 2000s, and therapy wasn't quite as normalized, but I don't think it was like offensive to like go to therapy. I don't know.
He definitely needed therapy. Like,
and the fact that Bella hallucinates Edward throughout this entire book. And like in the end, it's justified as like, oh, it was just like their bond. It was just her subconscious to tell her that they were meant to be together or some shit. I'm like, Bella, honey, you were hallucinating.
Yeah, this is how like, and then you're
never like addressed as like to be a weird thing in the book. Like, I know this is a fantasy book, but that was not a piece of fantasy.
Yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, and like when she woke up every night screaming, she said Charlie tried to help in the beginning, and like he would. But then he just gave up. Like she literally said, he just heard me scream and like just didn't get up anymore. Mm-hmm. That is so bad. Like I get it. You're just like, oh, this is so normal now. But it's like, you got to get her some help. Like, why are you just letting this happen? It just seems very negligent to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's definitely, like, when I read this back in 2008, I didn't think anything of it.
Yeah.
But now reading it now, I'm like, what? Why didn't anyone do anything?
Yeah, to be fair, I was in 6th grade when I read this the first time. So a lot of this analysis.
I was like, why isn't Edward in here? Like, why aren't they kissing? Like, why isn't anyone there? I mean, I don't think if it were in his POV, like his POV would just be like, well, I don't know.
Screaming again.
Because he didn't really try to do anything until months after is when he finally had that conversation. Because like obviously those months go by, and then he just starts off by like yelling at her. Like he slams on the table and he's like, I don't know what to do with you. Like, why would you handle it that way? Screaming at her isn't gonna make her be like, I really do need to do better. Mm-hmm. I should really get help. I just feel like it should have been handled differently. And then he's always, his first line of defense, if you can even call it that, is like, well, I'm just going to ship you off to your mom. Like, you just need to leave Forks. That's the solution. I'm like, why does it always go there? I think it happened twice in this book. Like, at the beginning, after whatever, and he's like yelling at her, telling her to get go see a therapist, and he's like, well, you should just go to your mom, like if you're just going to be like this. And then later on coming back and he's like, I want to ground you, maybe I should just, Renee misses you. I'm like, no, she doesn't. She like freaking
remember Bella exists.
She really doesn't. Like there was zero contact really between them. I mean, they did mention that Renee had emailed her.
Yeah.
But the only one we saw, Bella said something about it looking more like a diary entry than expecting a response back, because she just read all of her emails and just never responded. But also, why didn't her mom try to do anything either? It's not just on Charlie because she's living with him.
Because Renee sucks. She's like, that's the answer. Renee sucks. We know this. Like, Bella knows this.
Yeah.
That's why she didn't like reach out to her mom. When you like, if something really bad happened to you, I'd like call my mom and be like, God, that sucked. But she doesn't even like tell her.
Yeah. Maybe he did try to help, but she was catatonic. Maybe she didn't realize what else he was doing. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like he could have handled it better. That's like my last my last
I agree.
about that.
Like anyone could have said something. It didn't have to be Charlie, but
True.
Yeah.
And then she said like she hadn't missed any work.
mhm.
I was like, but you sat at home for months. Like, I'm so confused.
Well, even her friends like they just stopped trying to talk.
They
to
stopped
her.
talking to her.
It
Yeah,
wasn't like they were like went to anybody for help or like
Yeah.
I don't know. Like if my friend was that depressed, I would try my best to give them some help. Like,
yeah, not ignore them.
yeah.
I mean, to be fair, they were never like really that close because she did. I mean, not to like say that they should have just let her be her, but they
Yeah.
were never close because she did ditch them for Edward in the
Yeah.
beginning. And it
Mhm.
wasn't like there was an established deep, like they had sleepovers all the time. They weren't those kinds of friends. So I guess they were kind of okay with just being like, okay, she's not going to talk to us. So I guess that's how it is.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
We're the adults.
Any adult.
For real.
Okay. And then I had another thing I wanted to ask. Hold on. I have it in my notes. Okay. So Edward says that once they like get back together and whatever, he was like, I was gonna come back and beg for your forgiveness. But like, do you think that actually would have happened if this extreme didn't happen?
No, because it'd been 7 months. So where was he?
Exactly. Like, why
He's
did
a
the
liar.
timeline-
Yeah, he's
Well,
lying.
he's just about to.
Yeah, it's been 7 months, but I've given up. So no.
I shouldn't believe anything he said. I was like, okay, so it's been months and months and months, and it's like I was just about to, and then I heard that you jumped off that cliff. Like I'm gonna say unalived throughout the entire thing because I don't want to say, but he's like, but then I heard that you unalived, which is another thing that's such a main theme in this book is unaliving. Like, why is that
The
the option?
Romeo and Juliet retelling. That is
Yeah.
Which is like, why was that your basis for this?
It was so like over your head though, the retelling aspect of it and the whole unaliving plot.
Yeah, and like the fact that
And they watch it and they read it. It is very, very blatant.
I mean, they start off with a quote from Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah.
It's just a lot. But like, why would you want that to be the basis of like a romance book? Like, we've been there, we've done that. Why are you doing this again? And also, it's harmful for the audience that's reading it now to be like, this is so romantic.
Yeah.
If
Wow.
somebody doesn't want me, I should just kill myself. Like, what? It doesn't make any sense. Also, I don't know if anyone knows about this is like a sidetrack, but not. So the Adam Levine situation where he's like cheating on his girlfriend. Like the whole thing, the message
This is wife.
where
Yeah.
he's like, holy F,
Yeah.
that body of yours is absurd. I found this today and I just wanted to share.
No.
Oh my god.
Because it's the sparkliness for me.
That is one thing I would like to say that like if I was a human and I did not believe vampires existed, seeing a sparkly man is not going to make me understand that vampires exist. Like I have never ever understood that. They always make a big deal about how it like doesn't look human, but your mind is going to create an explanation for you regardless. Like, oh, he has some really like fancy Hollywood glitter on. Like, why is that exposing vampires? I've never understood. I don't understand.
I thought that's like one of my
Sorry.
pet peeves of this series is I think that's such a cop out, like for vampire lore. Oh, they're just sparkly. So that's and then they're just so pretty. That's why they can't go in the sun. And I love it, but it's such a cop out. Like
It's
Like I love it, but I hate it.
yeah.
We love it, but it's dumb.
I mean, the whole premise or whatever came to Stephenie Meyer in a dream. Like she
Yeah.
had a dream where Edward and Bella were sitting in the meadow and like he was all sparkly in the sun and he like loved her but also wanted to drink her blood.
Right.
So she's like, sparkly? I'm writing that down. That's something I can do that's different.
Ugh.
And also, like, why did it take so long for her to get that he was a werewolf?
Oh,
Because
please.
for her to get to the whole, oh my god, Edward's a vampire, it was like 0.2 seconds.
That's what literally pissed me off the most about this book. Like, I could not.
Yeah. I feel like we talked about this with the Twilight one, but we talked about like how smart she was.
Oh, she's not.
You know, like we were like, yeah, Bella's really smart. And then this one, I was like, Bella is so like, what? Where was that character development? Where did that go?
She's literally so dumb.
Yeah.
Like on page 248 for me, I annotated at the bottom. I said, "Hello, Bella's brain. Anyone in there?" She's so freaking dumb.
Well, and then like she sees the werewolves and then she's like imagining them again and imagining the one that was Jake, like the brown one.
Mhm.
And then she's like, it made me think of Jake. Oh no, like, is he okay? And I'm like, did you not get it right then and there?
know.
She's like, that made me think of Jacob. And I'm like,
What? Yeah.
but, and all of the signs were there.
Like,
It-
are we, as like, the first time reading it, like, without knowing anything back when you guys first read it, like, was it supposed to throw, like, the reader off too to not know that he was a werewolf? Or did you know that he was before reading?
I feel like I knew because of Twilight.
Yeah.
Like he literally talks about his tribe.
Okay, yeah. You
And
thought
there's
it
a legend.
I think
of
I
did,
the Taylor
yeah.
tribe.
Yeah, I definitely knew.
I don't think it was like supposed to be a plot twist.
No.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so why did Stephenie Meyer make her literally so dumb?
Yeah, it was so
Dumb.
weird. It took her such a long time. And she's like, I just don't understand because as a reader, when you read Twilight and he's going into detail about all the lore, like
Yeah.
you get both sides. But I guess Bella obviously was just focused on the cold ones talk.
Yeah.
And that's like hammered into us in this one too of like, even Jacob says like, oh, I guess I understand why that's the only part you remember. Because like that's all she wanted to know about was the cold ones.
Mhm.
But it's like, how did you just block out half that conversation that you guys had? And it was the first part of the conversation too. It
Yeah.
wasn't even like the other part. Yeah.
Yeah. It was like very obvious that like if like I knew obviously when I picked up Twilight for the first time that it was a series. So I was like, okay, I guess this is where the series was going when I was reading Twilight. So it's like
Mhm.
I don't understand.
The one part, I mean, it's on page 269 for me, but he's like, I mean, the first part made me laugh, but then the rest of it makes me laugh too. He's like, you know what makes me so mad? I could just spit. And I'm like, spit out of all the other things you could, like, makes me so mad. You know what? I could just spit. Like, not even like throw a fist or anything. You just want to spit.
Oh,
Because he's like, oh yeah, why do you kill people? You're a murderer and whatever. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, what? I'm not a bad person. And like, why are you so okay with vampires, but so not okay with werewolves?
Yeah.
That was another thing.
I just feel like she loses all of the character development she had in Twilight in this one.
Mhm.
And it's like, why?
Yeah. And then he's like, you're just scared because I'm a murderer and that's the only reason? You really honestly don't mind that I morph into a giant dog?
Yeah.
I was just laughing out loud, like he gave her a hug after that. Like, yeah, why would I care that you turn into a giant dog?
Yeah, Jacob, I like you better when you're a dog. Yes.
Yeah.
And the whole smell aspect was funny too.
Yeah.
Where Alice was like, ew, you smell. I just love. But like also I get that like a werewolf would probably smell like wet dog. But I'm like, what does a vampire smell like? Like how could he smell a vampire?
I would think like coppery, like blood,
Yeah.
and like a doctor's office, maybe.
I thought like a
Septic.
head, like a corpse, maybe.
I think that he did
That would be really
explain the smell. Jacob did.
He did, but I can't
Yeah.
remember what he said.
It was
I
like
don't either.
smelled cold.
Cold. Yeah, I was pretty sure he said cold too.
That's what he
What does that
said.
mean?
Smell cold.
What does that
Does
mean?
that smell good? I mean, I guess because he's really hot. He's just like
I don't
cold.
know.
I hate it.
I have no idea.
But then the part where what made me hate Jacob though, one of the things was he called her honey twice.
Yeah, all the
In a
time.
very
It was
patronizing
rude.
way. He's like Bella honey.
Like
Yeah.
of all the pet names, why that one? It
And
just
he's
doesn't
younger than
fit.
her.
Yeah, it didn't fit with his character. It feels like something like old people say.
Old Stephanie Meyer.
It's like Bella, sweetie. Why are you talking this way?
Well, it's kind of like a condescending.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's what I got too.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess in imaginary years, he is older than her.
That's
Yeah.
true.
Mhm.
Yeah.
They did the math on that. I can't even remember what they landed on for like what
He was
they're
like
actually.
30, I think.
Yeah, I think Jacob was like 32 and Bella was 23 or something.
Yeah.
And I was really liking the book until we got to like the action, which is pretty much the.
That's exactly what I said.
It's pretty much the opposite. Like I should have been more interested once they.
Yeah,
like,
once they
go
get
for
to
it.
Italy, I was like, I'm so bored now. Why? That
Yeah.
makes no sense to me, but every single time I read it, I get that way. And I'm like, I don't, and the movie too. I don't understand. I like lose interest.
I can't say that I relate.
I don't know. I don't know.
Interesting.
I can't, but Sarah said the same thing, and I was like, wow.
It was
That's
so
what
funny 'cause
you-
I was like slogging through it, and when Alice finally gets there, I'm like, oh, thank God, finally.
No, that's what
Yeah.
I was like. I think because, and this is my question, I guess. You're dating this dude, and then he dumps your ass in the woods, and then he comes back after 7 months. Would you just take him back like it was no problem? Like that's my question. Like,
Well, I feel like this is so strongly like the fated mates trope, so like there's no
Mhm.
question that like
ugh.
they belong together. So
Yeah.
I just like don't think I could ever be that forgiving.
realistically, no.
No.
Absolutely
But I'm like an asshole, so I'd be
Well,
like,
and the fact that at the end he's like, "How could you believe me?"
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the whole fact of like when they're talking about him turning her, and he's like, "Okay, then marry me."
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And I saw on some other like forums and stuff because I was looking up some other discussions that people have had about the book, and they were talking about like why wasn't Bella more excited about being proposed to? And I'm like, it's because he wasn't really proposing. He was like, "Oh yeah, just marry me." Like people were, "Oh my god,
Yeah.
he's the love of her life, and she's not excited to be marrying him." Like this is so unrealistic.
Well, she even said that like marriage isn't really
Yeah.
in her wheelhouse, but
But I also think the marriage thing kind of goes with for Edward, goes with the soul thing. Like I think it has to do with like
mhm.
keeping that human side of them and her still relevant.
Yeah. And like I've seen some other things where him turning her or whatever is like akin to, this is someone else's words, not mine, but I wanted to know what you guys thought, that it's akin to premarital sex. Like him not wanting to turn her before they're married, or like they have some kind of whatever. Like it's compared to premarital sex, because we know that there's like religion hinted in here, but like there's no religion actually like forced on you. But do you
It is a form
that
of
way?
penetration, so yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see where that comparison comes from.
I definitely think so.
I definitely think that that's an additional belief also that Edward holds, hence the marrying and the
Yeah.
stuff that comes.
And I
with it.
mean,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Jess, go ahead.
No, I was done. Sorry.
And I mean, and they also, and she also has that belief, Stephanie Meyer. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Isn't he old? No problem. He did make a joke about like, she's like, aren't I too young to get married? And he was like, well, I'm 100 and whatever, so better late than never. And I was like, what are you talking about? It was just like, wow, so romantic. The
So
love of my
romantic.
life is basically just like giving me an ultimatum for marriage. Like, I'll turn you if you marry me. How romantic is that?
Yeah, I feel like I can see the comparison, but I don't think that Stephanie Meyer did it on purpose. I don't think that she would have thought that way about her books,
Yeah.
personally. I don't
Yeah, I
think
mean, a lot of people just go off on tangents and stuff, and they'll just nitpick a book, and they're like, "Wow, I didn't think about that when I was writing it." But like,
Yeah, I think she just wrote it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I think it just came out. I don't think
Yeah,
it was a
I
lot
agree.
of, I mean, the fact that the Romeo and Juliet thing is like hit over the head, I don't think she does subtle. So
yeah, I know. Does anyone have any questions they would like to share?
I do have a question. My question is, do we think that it was really like in Edward's character to have left Bella at the beginning the way that he did?
No, I never understand it.
Yeah. I feel like I go back and forth a little bit because I can see his explanation at the end where he was like, I would do anything to save your soul. He's such like a martyr character. Like I see that. But also he talks a lot in the first book about how he's selfish and he would never leave her. And like, he makes this promise to like never hurt her. And like, I don't know. I just feel like it's not really in his character either to have left her in the beginning. And it was
I feel like this is why I don't like this book, because like Edward makes no sense in it, like at all. He's like, I had to leave you. And then he comes back, he's like, why did you believe me? And I'm like, what? Why are you manipulating her? Like you literally said you wouldn't leave and then you left and now you're back.
Yeah. I think a lot of this book goes against what happened in Twilight.
Yeah.
And things that were kind of set in stone for their characters, or things that were starting to progress. So I always hated that, the start of this book, because I never understood truly what his reasoning was. Like maybe if there was some kind of threat that he had perceived, or that Alice perceived, and then the only way he could save Bella was by leaving, then I could understand. But we don't even have that. So
Yeah.
it was just.
And why didn't Alice see Victoria being a threat to Bella? Also,
I think it's because of Jacob. Jacob being there.
Oh, maybe
Like,
Because all the wolves were around and they were
Like she was constantly with Jacob.
modeling things. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't see it either in his character. I get the whole like, I mean, I get it and I don't get it where the only way I can keep you safe is by leaving you, but then it's like, you know how she is, you know how attached to you she is. She's not gonna be okay as soon as you leave. Like, you're only hurting her more.
Yeah, like she did not bounce back.
like you guys
Not
are
at
always
all.
talking about being together forever, either for as long as Bella lives, or if you turn her for a lot longer than that. How can you just like break up and like think she's gonna be
He
okay?
just wants to protect her, but like,
Stupid.
you and your whole coven, okay? You're just gonna go away and leave her, like Laurent said, unprotected.
Yeah.
So anyone can come there and just, because she's a hot commodity and like people know about her, it doesn't make any sense why they would leave her like that. Like you said, if there was a threat, like an actual threat where they were given an ultimatum where it's like you either leave her or we're gonna kill her, then that would make sense. But him to just be like, it'll be better for you if I'm not here, is like, okay, well, why are you deciding what's best for me?
Yeah.
Need an excuse to continue the saga.
Yeah.
Probably.
Probably just like Twilight came out and then got more book deals. Probably.
I mean, I don't know. I guess it was to give us more time to develop a relationship between Jacob and Bella to see if it went anywhere. But like, he's younger than her, so automatically no.
That was what my question was going to be. Would the book have been more interesting to actually have had Jacob and Edward interacting more and to see an actual love triangle sprout between them, or was it more effective to not have him there and explore a relationship with just Bella and Jacob?
I think if we were meant to believe like there's actually going to be a love triangle, then having them both there and her having to decide between them when they're both present, like then we as the reader would have to make a decision on who we want to pick. But like seeing her just with Jacob and like having no Edward, having no one else there, and then her making her own mind up of like, I wish you were my brother. And like, yeah, that automatically just doesn't, he's not in the equation anymore. He's just there as a placeholder because the love of her life is nowhere.
And also, like, if Edward had never left, would he have let her be friends with Jacob? No. I don't think it would have ever happened.
I don't think that she would have even like.
Yeah, it wouldn't have. Yeah.
I don't know that it would have ever come to that. But.
Yeah.
I definitely think it would have been more interesting if it did play out more as a love triangle. I hate to like compare it to Credence, but like if it did, it kind of like that where like she had her own time with, you know, Jacob, but then Edward was also still there. So like there was more scenes of like Jacob and Edward kind of tussling it out or whatever, but then also she had her own time with each of them.
Mm-hmm.
I think
Yeah.
that definitely would have been more interesting. Because I like a love triangle. Like I wanted it to be more love triangle. So I was really surprised when it wasn't that way in this.
Mm-hmm. No, I agree. Because I think her intention was to cast doubt in our minds with Edward with New Moon. Like that is essentially the purpose of this book. I just don't think that the way that she did it was as well thought out as she thought it was. Because I never once wanted Bella and Jacob to be together.
Right.
Also, I know that Jess asked this question on my Instagram, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say it now.
I'm glad because I couldn't remember what I put in there.
I mean, I kind of like tried to word it differently.
That's fine.
Is what Sam did to Emily abuse, and like how do we feel about it? How do we feel like it was handled?
Right. So like we don't get a lot of the story, right? Just that like it was an accident, but something makes them turn into werewolves, and usually it's them being mad. So were they fighting and then he turned? So yes, it was abuse.
Yeah, I think so too. And I think it's gross that it's justified and that they are like said that it's an accident and
yeah, an accident. Like, and yeah, it's so glossed over.
Mm-hmm.
But
like not even include it.
Yeah. So like Jacob says, like I turn when I'm mad or like when I need to, like that. And so if you go back, you know that like they were fighting or something.
But anything could set them off though, too.
Yeah.
Because it could, what if she just put like, I don't know, did something by accident and that just set him off?
I feel like that's really worse.
Yeah, that's where you're
But
right.
does
Like,
he
oh.
really have? Can you count it as abuse if he doesn't have control over this creature that's inside of him?
Instinct, yeah.
I think that's the dilemma.
His animal instinct.
Yeah, but like also Jacob got pretty heated in a few
Mhm.
moments with Bella, but he's like, I can control myself. Like I'm good at this. And he's like newer, so you would think, I mean, we don't know exactly when Sam had done that to Emily, but
I mean, it's not fresh.
well, I
so-
know that, but I'm just saying like he was obviously not as experienced as he is now, but then you have Jacob who just started turning into a werewolf and he can control himself more. So I don't know how to feel about it, and I don't like that it was just never talked about in like she never even tried to question Sam about it. It was like, oh, she was just standing close, like he feels really bad about it, and then that was kind of it.
Yeah.
And then she just talks about how much they love each other, and it's apparent like the way they look at each other.
Yeah, it definitely doesn't feel like completely. It gives me the ick, I think.
Yeah. It is just like glossed over.
Yeah. I mean, if it was an accident, like, yeah, accidents happen, but it was just the way it was handled. And then also, I didn't even register this the first time around, but the second time when I was reading it, how they said, like, she rolled up her sleeves when she was cooking and she had marks, like, all over her arms. So I was
think
like,
it was,
was
like,
that from that
one-
same attack? Or,
Yeah, I
like,
think it's
was
like
it-
one long swipe, but still, I think it's kind of scary that like how paralleled it would be to a real life situation where he lost his temper and
Yeah.
attacked her for it, and then it's just brushed off and justified, like, oh, it was a one-time thing, like he will never do it again.
Yeah. But there was no, like, actual discussion with, like, that. I think it was just the way it was just dropped in, and then
I think that it's put in there because Stephanie Meyer wanted to show that there's also a negative side to being with a werewolf, just like there is for a negative side to being with a vampire. I don't think she thought, oh, well, this could be in for abuse. I don't think she's that, no offense. I don't think she's that smart.
No, I agree.
She doesn't think that way. I think it was just like a blatant, this is bad, and this is also bad. There's like good things with each creature.
yeah, and like there are consequences. It's not all rainbows and butterflies. Like you want to be around all of these quote unquote monsters, but like there are bad sides to it too.
Yeah.
I thought he did that when he changed the first time. It never specified.
Yeah, it doesn't specify.
I don't think so though, because I think he was already a werewolf before he even met Emily, because they talk about this in the later books, but how Emily and Sam meet. But I'm pretty sure like this was not the first time he changed. I think it was like he got triggered by something.
Yeah. Also, I mean, I agree, but like at the same time, I was like, whatever. She's just doing her thing.
She's so like such a side character, so it's like, yeah.
Anybody else have any questions? I'm trying to see if I have any other ones.
Well, I can ask mine, even though I said it wasn't very legitimate.
Go ahead.
But like, why does everyone even like care about Bella anyway? Like, she's such a like normal, boring person. Why is everyone so like invested in her anyways? Like, just leave her alone. I don't get it.
That's why I said I was Team Bella. Like, she said no. She's gone through this depression. Just like leave her alone. What you said.
She just
Yeah.
needs to like go do something else.
Yeah.
Get away from all this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I really don't think Edward would care about her unless, except for the fact that her like blood smells the way it does.
Yeah. The way
Like, I
her
feel like
blood
that's the only reason.
Yeah.
He cared
Yeah.
about her in the beginning.
And then because he's so drawn to her, it makes everyone
Yeah.
else kind of drawn to her as like, oh, why? Like, even in the first book, because he was so interested in whatever, like, and he couldn't catch anyone's attention. They're all like, what? Like, why?
And is it just because like it's a really small town? Like Melissa says, she's the shiny new toy in town.
Yeah.
Like, it's really
Yeah.
that small that they all notice her.
Mhm.
Yeah. But
And
then you
like,
would think when she went through her that's what makes it weird because she's the shiny new toy, and then when she's no longer shiny and she's like not talking to anyone and whatever, they were all
Mhm.
drawn to her when she didn't even do anything, but now she's like doing negative things or being like whatever,
Mhm.
and nobody is drawn to her then.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, why didn't anyone help her? Like, it didn't have to be Charlie, but like, it literally could have been anyone. She is dry toast.
yeah, literally.
So right.
It really is. I think it's like to this bigger message of like you don't have to be the prettiest girl to like get the guy. I don't know if Stephanie was thinking like just this plain Jane, she gets
Bella is the original YN. But I also think that it's kind of like I've always thought that it's just foreshadowing that Bella doesn't belong to the human world.
Yeah, you're right.
She's destined to be supernatural, and that's why like
yeah.
Edward and Jacob are drawn to her. But
And then like everyone is who has powers is fascinated by her because their powers don't work on her,
Mm.
which is very interesting. All right, does anyone have any favorite quotes they would like to share? I have a little thing.
honestly,
have a
I
few.
feel like my
I'll go
favorite
back.
one is when Rosalie is like, "I wish someone had voted no for me," or "wish
That was my favorite one too.
Yeah.
Because it's like we get to know her more in the later books, but that's like the first time she's not like a villain or whatever, and you're like, oh, what is that about?
Mhm.
Yeah. One of my favorites is when she's like starting to feel better after she's been hanging out with Jacob. She says, "How can I explain so that he would understand? I was like an empty shell, like a vacant house condemned for months. I've been utterly uninhabitable now. I was a little improved. The front room was in better repair, but that was all. Just the one small piece. He deserves better, but then wait. He deserves better than that. Better than a one-room falling down fixer-upper. No amount of investment on his part could put me back in working order." I was like, damn, that hit me in the feels.
I really liked time passes, even when it's impossible, even when each tick of the second hand aches, like the pulse of blood behind a bruise. It passes unevenly, and strain lurches, and dragging lulls, but pass it does, even for me. And I just loved the way that she described time with depression. Like,
Yeah. I feel like she did talk about depression in a good way a lot of the time. Like she did, like not in a good, but she captured the essence of what it's like.
mhm.
And I did like the writing in this book better than the first.
Yeah, I agree. It's better.
But yeah, that's just my 2 cents. Also, I'm wearing my shirt that says, "Bella, where the hell you been, Luca?" But that's not even in the book, so it's fine.
I'm so sad it's not in the book because it's just like so iconic.
Whenever Jacob spoke, no, because he said honey.
Get out of here.
You try very hard for something that's not your fault. Yes, when he's like, "You're apologizing for bleeding?"
I like that.
After she fell off the motorcycle, I was like, oh god.
Yeah.
I love the time quote too. Yeah, that's like right after. That's the waking up chapter, I think, like the very beginning. And then Charlie like brings down the hammer after that and is like, "You need to get help." Anyone have any final thoughts or things they'd like to talk about? Or Sydney, do you have a quote?
I have a quote, but like I said, I gave this book 2 stars. I really did not enjoy it very much. So like I had a hard time finding quotes that I liked. But like if I were to have really liked the book, I feel like I would have died over this quote. On page 489 for me, it says, "I couldn't keep my eyes off of Edward's face for long. I stared at him, wishing more than anything that the future would never happen, that this moment would last forever, or if it couldn't, that I would stop existing when it did." So, yeah.
Yeah.
But, like, I don't really care that much. It's not, like, that much of a favorite quote.
Have you enjoyed the movies more than the like so far what you've seen than the books?
Yeah, I enjoyed the first Twilight movie compared to the book, yeah. So I'm looking forward to watching New Moon.
This is my least favorite book, but this is my favorite movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie.
I still think Twilight, like the movie.
I know. Listen, Twilight is a
Because
classic.
it's so different from the other ones.
Yeah.
All the other ones have like the same color scheme, kind of.
Yeah,
And
I
this
love
one
the
is
blue
out.
color.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, well, thanks for coming to our discussion of New Moon. We will be having the movie watch next Friday, 7 p.m. EDT, or is it 8 p.m.? I can't remember. One of those times next Friday. So watch the movie with us. Not sure where it's going to be streamed yet, but we'll figure that out and I will post about it. But yeah, thank you all for coming to the discussion. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.